The crystal city of Velkarin burned under a red sky. Commander Velkarin watched from his underground bunker as another building collapsed. The Void Hunters had been attacking his world for 3 months now. Every day, more of his people died. Every day, their beautiful crystal towers fell. Veltar was not a warrior. His people, the Zephyrians, had never known war. They built things. They studied the stars. They made art from light and sound. But now their enemies ate everything they had created. The Void Hunters consumed metal, stone, and flesh alike. They grew stronger with each bite. "Commander," said Lixera, his chief scientist. Her crystal skin was cracked from stress. "The Eastern District is gone. We have maybe 2,000 survivors left in the deep shelters." 2,000. Veltar remembered when their city held 2 million souls. Now most were dead or worse. The Void Hunters did not always kill quickly. Sometimes they kept people alive to feed on slowly. "What about the beacon?" Veltar asked. Lixara shook her head. "Still transmitting, but no response. It has been sending our distress call for 47 days now. If anyone was going to answer, they would have by now." The beacon was their last hope. It used old Galactic Council frequencies that had been silent for 1,000 years. Most people thought the Council was just a legend, but Veltar's grandfather had been alive when the Council fell. He had told stories of a great alliance that once kept peace among the stars. The ground shook as another explosion hit above them. Dust fell from the ceiling. Their bunker was deep, but not deep enough. Soon the Void Hunters would dig them out. "Keep transmitting," Veltar said. "Someone might hear us." Far across the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the human dreadnought Iron Wolf. His ship was black and scarred from 3 years of fighting. The humans called it the HFY War, but it was really just the latest in a long line of conflicts. Humanity had been fighting someone for as long as anyone could remember. Morrison was 42 years old and tired. His crew was tired too. They had been away from Earth for 16 months, fighting battles and systems most humans had never heard of. The Iron Wolf was part of the 5th Expeditionary Fleet, and their job was simple: find the enemy and destroy them. "Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her communications station, "I'm picking up something strange." Carter was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and sharp eyes. She had joined the fleet straight from the academy. Morrison had seen dozens of young officers like her. Most did not last long in deep space. "What kind of strange?" Morrison asked. "It's a distress signal, sir, but it's using frequencies I've never seen before. Very old protocols, and it's not in any human language." Morrison frowned. Alien signals were rare, and most of them were bad news. In Morrison's experience, aliens usually meant trouble. The galaxy was full of species that wanted to kill humans, enslave them, or worse. "Can you translate it?" he asked. Carter worked at her station for several minutes. Around the bridge, other crew members went about their duties. Chief Engineer Pete Walsh was fixing something that had broken during their last battle. Weapons Officer Dan Brooks was cleaning his rifles. Everyone stayed busy on a warship. "I think so, sir," Carter said. Finally, the signal is repeating the same message over and over. It says, "We are dying. Please help us. The Void Hunters have come. If anyone can hear this, please help us." Morrison had never heard of the Void Hunters, but the name sounded bad. Most things with void in the name were bad news. He had learned that the hard way. "Where is it coming from?" he asked. "Kepler 442. System, sir. About 8 light-years from here." Morrison thought about it. 8 light-years was not far by fleet standards. The Iron Wolf could make the jump in 6 hours, but they had orders to patrol this sector and watch for hegemony ships. "Sir," said Walsh from his engineering station, "I've heard of the Void Hunters before." Everyone on the bridge looked at him. Walsh was 50 years old and had been in space, longer than anyone else on the ship. He had seen things that most people only heard about in stories. Where? Morrison asked. Outer Rim colonies, sir. About 10 years ago. Whole systems went dark. No communication, no survivors. When scout ships finally reached them, they found nothing. No planets. No asteroids. No debris. Just empty space where solar systems used to be. The bridge went quiet. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen a lot of destruction in his career, but nothing like that. Could these void hunters do something like that? He asked. Walsh nodded grimly. If the stories are true, sir, they eat everything. Matter, energy, even space itself. They leave nothing behind. Morrison looked at the star chart on his main screen. 8 light-years to Kepler 442. 8 light-years to whatever was left of the aliens who had sent the signal. Sir, Carter said, quietly, the signal is getting weaker. I think their transmitter is failing. Morrison made his decision. He had not lived this long by ignoring his instincts, and his instincts told him this was important. Maybe the aliens were lying. Maybe it was a trap. But maybe they really were dying, and maybe humans could help them. Carter, send a message to the other ships in our patrol group. Tell them we're investigating a possible alien contact. Include the signal data. Yes, Sir Walsh. Prepare the ship for jump. Set course for Kepler 442. Aye, Captain. Morrison settled back in his chair as the Iron Wolf began to turn. He had no idea what they would find in the Kepler 442 system. He hoped they would not be too late. In his underground bunker, Commander Veltar felt the ground shake again. His people were dying. His world was dying. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, help was coming. He did not know it yet, but the humans were coming, and when humans came to help, they brought their guns with them. The Iron Wolf dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Morrison stared at his main screen and felt his blood turn cold. The alien homeworld was there, but it was dying. Strange black ships circled the planet like hungry sharks. They were massive, bigger than human dreadnoughts, and they moved in ways that hurt to watch. Mother of God, whispered Lieutenant Carter. Morrison had seen a lot of terrible things in his career, but this was different. The planet's surface was gray and cracked. Where there should have been blue oceans and green continents, there was only empty wasteland. The void hunters were eating the world, piece by piece. How many of those ships are there? Morrison asked. 14 large vessels, sir, reported scanner technician Roy Adams. Maybe 30 smaller ones. They're connected to the planet, somehow, like they're feeding. Morrison watched the alien ships on his screen. They had long tentacles that reached down to the planet's surface. The tentacles pulsed with dark energy. Whatever they were doing, it was killing the world below. Any sign of the aliens who sent the distress signal? He asked. Carter worked at her station, still getting weak transmissions from the northern continent, sir. There's something alive down there, but not much. Morrison turned to his tactical officer. Colonel Brooks, what's our situation? Danny Brooks was a career Marine who had fought in more battles than anyone could count. He studied the enemy ships with the cold eyes of a professional killer. We're outnumbered about 3 to 1, sir. Those ships are big, but they move slow. Built for eating planets, not fighting other ships. We need to get closer, see what we're really dealing with. But sir, ... Brooks paused. If these things really eat whole solar systems, our entire fleet might not be enough to stop them. Morrison nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. The Iron Wolf was a good ship with a good crew, but they were just one vessel. Still, someone had called for help, and humans did not abandon people who needed them. Take us in closer, Morrison ordered. But keep our distance from those feeding tentacles. I want to know what happens to anything that gets too close. The Iron Wolf moved slowly into the system. Morrison watched the Void Hunter ships carefully. For several minutes, they did not react to the human vessel. They seemed focused on consuming the planet below. Then everything changed. The largest Void Hunter ship suddenly turned toward them. It was the size of a small moon, black as space itself, covered in spines and feeding tubes. Morrison felt his stomach drop as the monster began to move in their direction. "Sir," Adams called out. "I'm reading massive energy buildup in that ship. It's powering weapons." "Evasive maneuvers," Morrison ordered. "All hands, battle stations." The Iron Wolf rolled to port just as a beam of dark energy lanced through the space where they had been. The beam continued past them and struck an asteroid. The asteroid simply vanished, as if it had never existed. "Return fire," Morrison shouted. The Iron Wolf's guns opened up. Nuclear missiles and particle beams struck the Void Hunter ship. The explosions lit up space, but when the fire cleared, the alien vessel was undamaged. Worse, it seemed to have grown slightly larger. "Sir," Walsh called from engineering, "our weapons aren't hurting it. I think it's absorbing the energy from our attacks." Morrison cursed under his breath. This was going to be harder than he thought. "Break off attack. Take us down to the planet. We need to find those survivors." The Iron Wolf dove toward the dying world, chased by dark energy beams. The ship shook as near misses rocked the hull. Morrison held onto his chair and prayed they would make it to the surface. "There," Carter pointed at her screen. "I'm getting the strongest signals from those mountains. There's definitely someone alive down there." Morrison looked at the mountain range on his screen. It was one of the few places on the planet that still looked normal. Everything else was gray wasteland, or worse. "Brooks, get your people ready. We're going down there." "Yes, sir." The Iron Wolf's landing shuttles launched 20 minutes later. Colonel Brooks led the first contact team, along with Marine Sergeant Lisa Hayes and Medic Corporal Ryan Clark. They were all volunteers, which was good, because Morrison was not sure what they would find on the surface. The shuttle touched down in a valley between two peaks. The air was thin but breathable. Brooks and his team stepped out with their weapons ready. The landscape around them looked like a war zone. Dead trees, cracked ground, and strange burn marks covered everything. "This way," Hayes pointed toward a cave entrance. "I'm reading life signs inside the mountain." They walked carefully toward the cave. Brooks had been a Marine for 15 years, and he could feel danger in the air. This place felt wrong, like something terrible had happened here. The cave entrance was sealed with some kind of energy barrier. As they approached, the barrier flickered and died. A figure appeared in the doorway. It was clearly not human. The alien stood about 6 feet tall and seemed to be made of living crystal. Its skin reflected light in strange ways, and its eyes glowed with soft blue fire. It looked weak and tired, like it had not eaten in days. "I am Commander Veltar," the alien said in perfect English. "You received our signal." Brooks nodded slowly. The alien's voice had a musical quality that made it hard to concentrate. "I'm Colonel Brooks, Earth Military. We came as soon as we heard your message." Veltar's crystal skin seemed to brighten. "Earth, I do not know this world, but you came. Someone finally came." "How many of you are left?" Hayes asked. 2017, Veltar said sadly. "We had over 2 million when the Void Hunters arrived." Brooks felt his jaw tighten. 2 million dead. That was worse than some of the massacres he had seen during the Hegemony War. "Tell us about these Void Hunters," he said. Veltar led them deeper into the cave. The tunnels were filled with crystal formations that gave off soft light. Other aliens moved in the shadows, all looking thin and scared. They were clearly refugees hiding from something terrible. "The Void Hunters came 3 months ago," Veltar explained as they walked. "We tried to negotiate with them. We offered them resources, technology, anything they wanted. But they do not want things. They want everything. They eat matter itself. Metal, stone, flesh, energy, everything. They reached a large cavern filled with glowing crystals. Hundreds of aliens sat in small groups, tending to wounded and caring for children. It looked like a refugee camp, but sadder somehow. Our weapons cannot hurt them, Veltar continued. We are builders, not warriors. We make things. We study the stars. We have never learned to kill. Brooks nodded. He was starting to understand. These aliens were peaceful. They had probably never fought a war in their entire history. No wonder they were losing. What about your technology? Clark asked. Your ships, your weapons. Advanced beyond your understanding, said another alien, approaching them. This one introduced herself as Lixora, their chief scientist, but designed for creation, not destruction. We can build cities that float in space, but we cannot make a bomb. Brooks looked around the cavern. He saw aliens using tools that looked like magic, devices that bent light, machines that moved without making sound, computers that seemed to think for themselves, but no guns, no armor, no weapons at all. We need to get back to our ship, Brooks said. We need to report this to our captain. You will help us? Veltar asked, hopefully. Brooks looked at the alien commander. He thought about 2 million dead. He thought about the Void Hunter ships eating the planet above them. He thought about his orders to patrol human space and avoid alien conflicts. Then he thought about what Captain Morrison would say. Morrison was a good officer and a good man. He would not abandon people who needed help, even if they were aliens. We'll help, Brooks said. But you need to understand something. Humans fight differently than you do. We might have to do things that seem wrong to you, such as kill things, Hayes said bluntly. Lots of things. That's what humans do when someone threatens innocent people. Veltar's crystal skin flickered with confused colors. You would kill for us. But we are not your people. No, Brooks said, checking his rifle. But you asked for help. And when someone asks humans for help, we bring guns. Captain Morrison stood in the alien cavern and tried not to stare. The Zephyrians moved around him like living jewelry, their crystal skin catching the light in impossible ways. But what really caught his attention were their weapons. Or rather, the complete lack of them. Show me what you've been using to fight, Morrison said to Commander Veltar. The alien leader picked up a device that looked like a crystal wand. This is a matter reshaper. It can move stone or metal by changing its molecular structure. Morrison took the device and examined it. It was beautiful, clearly advanced technology, but useless as a weapon. Have you tried using it on the Void? Hunters, of course. It does nothing to them. They absorb the energy and grow stronger. Morrison handed the device back. He looked around the cavern at the other Zephyrian tools. Everything was designed for building, creating, or healing. These people had probably never hurt another living thing in their entire history. Colonel Brooks, Morrison said. Assessment. Brooks stepped forward. Sir, these people have better technology than us, but they think like engineers, not soldiers. They're trying to solve the Void Hunters like a technical problem, instead of treating them like an enemy that needs to be destroyed. Morrison nodded. That matched what he had observed. The Zephyrians were clearly intelligent, but they approached war the same way they approached everything else, as a puzzle to be solved peacefully. Commander Veltar, Morrison said, my people are going to help you, but we need to do things our way. That means teaching your people how to fight and kill. Are you prepared for that? Veltar's crystal skin flickered with uncertain colors. We do not know how to kill. We do, said Sergeant Hayes bluntly. That's what humans are good at. Morrison turned to his officers. Ayas, Foster, Santos, I want you to start training programs immediately. Teach them everything. Weapons, tactics, explosives, guerrilla warfare, everything we know about killing. Things that need killing. Staff Sergeant Tim Foster stepped forward. He was a demolitions expert who had blown up more enemy installations than anyone could count. Sir, what about their moral objections? These people seem pretty peaceful. Their people are dying, Morrison said simply. Sometimes being peaceful gets you killed. The training began immediately. Foster set up classes on making improvised explosives using Zephyrian materials. The aliens watched in horror as he showed them how to turn their construction tools into bombs. You take this power cell, Foster explained to a group of nervous Zephyrians, and you connect it to this metal fragment here. When someone steps on this pressure plate, boom, no more enemy. One of the aliens, a young female named Kasara, raised her hand. But what if an innocent person steps on it? That's why we put warning signs, Foster said patiently, in human writing, so the Void Hunters can't read them. Weapons specialist Maria Santos was having similar conversations with another group. She was trying to explain the concept of an ambush to aliens who had never hidden from anyone in there. Lives. You wait until they're close, Santos said. Then you hit them from multiple directions at once. The idea is to kill as many as possible before they know you're there. But that seems dishonest, said an elderly Zephyrian scientist. Dishonest is better than dead, Santos replied. Meanwhile, Morrison was working with Veltar and the other leaders on strategy. He had spread out tactical maps on a crystal table, showing Void Hunter positions and movement patterns. They're feeding here, here, and here. Morrison pointed 2 spots on the map. 3 main harvest sites. There's your planet from the surface down. Yes, Veltar said sadly. Each day they take more. Good. That means they're predictable. They have to return to the same spots to continue feeding. That's where we hit them. Morrison traced attack routes on the map. Small teams, hit-and-run tactics. We blow up their harvesting equipment and disappear before they can respond. Make them chase us into prepared killing zones. Killing zones, asked Lixera. Places where we stack the odds in our favor, Morrison explained. Narrow valleys, where they can't maneuver. Caves with only one entrance. Anywhere we can control the fighting. The first joint operation was planned for the next day. Morrison would lead a mixed team of humans and Zephyrians against a Void Hunter harvesting site. The aliens were nervous, but they were also desperate enough to try anything. Lieutenant Commander Beth Parker was chosen to lead the ground assault. She was tough, smart, and had experience fighting in difficult terrain. She gathered her mixed team in a side cavern to go over the plan one more time. Remember, Parker said to the Zephyrians, when I give the signal, you hit them with everything you've got. No hesitation, no mercy. These things ate 2 million of your people. The Zephyrians nodded, but Parker could see fear in their glowing eyes. They were not natural fighters, but sometimes desperation was enough. The harvesting site was located in what used to be a major city. Now it was just a crater with strange machines eating the ground. Void Hunter creatures moved around the machines like worker ants. They were smaller than the ships in orbit, but still the size of tanks. Parker and her team crept through the ruins surrounding the crater. The Zephyrians moved silently, which surprised her. For peaceful people, they were good at sneaking around. Target the power cores, Parker whispered into a radio. Santos, you and your team take the left side. Foster, you're on the right. Zephyrians wait for my signal. They moved into position. Parker could see the Void Hunter creatures clearly now. They were horrible things, like metal spiders crossed with industrial machinery. They tore chunks out of the ground and fed them into their central processors. On my mark, Parker said. 3, 2, 1, mark. The attack began with human explosives. Foster's charges went off first, destroying 2 of the harvesting machines in brilliant fireballs. Then Santos opened up with her squad's weapons, pouring automatic fire into the Void Hunter creatures. The aliens joined in with their own weapons. Parker was amazed to see what Zephyrian technology could do when used aggressively. Their matter reshapers tore holes in Void Hunter armor. Their energy projectors burned through metal like it was paper. But the biggest surprise was the Zephyrians themselves. Once they started fighting, really fighting, they were vicious. 2 million dead. Friends and family members had given them plenty of motivation. The Void Hunters tried to respond, but they were used to fighting defensive enemies. They had no tactics for dealing with an aggressive assault from multiple directions. Within 10 minutes, the harvesting site was completely destroyed. Fall back, Parker ordered. Move, move, move. The team retreated through prepared escape routes, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and dead Void Hunters. By the time enemy reinforcements arrived, the attackers were long gone. Back in the cavern, the mixed team celebrated their first victory. The Zephyrians were amazed at what they had accomplished. For the first time in months, they had struck back at their enemies. "How did you know that would work?" Veltar asked Morrison. Morrison smiled grimly. "Because humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to kill things that need killing. And now we know too," said Kessera. The young Zephyrian female was cleaning a human rifle that Santos had given her. "It feels ... strange, but good." Morrison nodded. War always felt strange to peaceful people, but sometimes war was the only way to protect what you loved. "This is just the beginning," he told the assembled group. "We're going to hit them again tomorrow, and the day after that. We're going to keep hitting them until they learn that this planet is defended." The Zephyrians looked at each other with new understanding. They were no longer just victims waiting to die. They were fighters now, and fighters had a chance to win. High above the dying planet, the Void Hunter Overmind felt something it had never experienced before: confusion. For 3 million years, its fleets had consumed entire star systems without resistance. Civilizations fell before them like grass before fire. But these new creatures, these humans, were different. The Overmind was not one being, but millions, a collective consciousness that shared thoughts across space itself. Every Void Hunter was connected to it, sharing their experiences and knowledge. And right now, that knowledge included something unprecedented: defeat. 7 harvesting sites destroyed. 43 warrior units killed. Equipment worth centuries of growth lost in a matter of days. The Overmind tried to understand how this was possible. The local species, the crystalline beings, had been easy prey. They built beautiful things and had powerful technology, but no warrior instinct. The Overmind had been looking forward to a long, satisfying feast. Then the humans arrived. Through the eyes of its surviving units, the Overmind studied these new enemies. They were small, soft, and fragile. Their technology was crude compared to the crystal beings. Their weapons were primitive projectile devices and chemical explosives. They should have been easy to destroy, but they were not. Captain Morrison stood in the Iron Wolf's war room, studying intelligence reports. In the past week, his people had hit the Void Hunters 12 times. Each attack was more successful than the last. The Zephyrians were learning fast, and their advanced technology combined with human tactics was proving deadly. "Sir," said intelligence analyst Laura Kim. She was young but brilliant, fresh from Earth's military academies. "I've been studying the Void Hunter communication intercepts. Something's changed." Morrison looked up from his tactical displays. "What kind of change?" "They're talking to each other more often, and the pattern of their communications has shifted. Before, it was just simple coordination between units. Now, it's like they're discussing things." Discussing what? Kim pulled up a translation matrix on her screen. "Best I can tell, they're trying to understand us. They've never faced an enemy that actively hunts them. They don't know how to respond." Morrison smiled grimly. That was exactly what he had hoped to hear. The key to fighting a superior enemy was to make them fight your kind of war instead of their own. "What about their fleet movements?" he asked. That's the interesting part, sir. 3 of their largest ships have moved into defensive positions around their command vessel. They're acting like they expect to be attacked. Morrison nodded. Good. If the Void Hunters were thinking defensively, they were already losing. Defense was reactive. Humans preferred to take action. Sir, came a voice from the communications station. Major Wright is reporting in from the Savage Dawn. Major Kevin Wright commanded a destroyer that specialized in ambush tactics. Morrison had sent him to patrol the outer system, looking for Void Hunter reinforcements. Put him through, Morrison said. Wright's voice crackled over the speakers. Captain, we just took out 2 Void Hunter scout ships. They were trying to study our fleet composition. We got them both before they could report back. Good work. Any problems? No, sir, but these things learn fast. The second ship almost got away. They're adapting to our tactics. Morrison frowned. That was not good news. The whole plan depended on hitting the Void Hunters before they could adapt to human warfare. If they were learning to counter human tactics, the window of opportunity would close quickly. All ships, return to base, Morrison ordered. We need to accelerate our timeline. The Overmind felt the loss of its scout units like a sharp pain. The humans were not just attacking randomly. They were systematically destroying Void Hunter assets, cutting off information flow, and isolating the main fleet. This was warfare, not the simple consumption that the Overmind was used to, but actual strategic combat between intelligent enemies. The Overmind had tactical knowledge from 1,000,000 absorbed civilizations, but none of them had fought like this. The humans struck at weak points and disappeared. They used the planet's terrain to their advantage. They combined different weapons in unexpected ways. Worst of all, they were teaching the local species to fight like humans. The Overmind made a decision. It sent a probe deep into human space, looking for their homeworld. If these creatures were so dangerous, the Overmind needed to understand them better. On the planet's surface, Colonel Brooks was leading another training session. The Zephyrians had come far in just 1 week. They were no longer the peaceful builders he had first met. War had changed them, hardened them, given them the edge they needed to survive. Remember, Brooks told a group of Zephyrian fighters, the enemy expects you to fight defensively. They're used to species that hide and try to protect their cities. We're going to do the opposite. You mean attack their ships directly? Asked Kasara. The young female had become one of their best fighters, combining Zephyrian technology with human aggression. Exactly. Tonight, we're going after their command ship. The Zephyrians looked at each other nervously. The Void Hunter command ship was the size of a small moon. It had never been successfully attacked by any species. Sir, said one of the older Zephyrians, that ship has consumed the life force of entire worlds. Surely it's too powerful to attack directly. Brooks smiled. That's what they want you to think, but big doesn't always mean unbeatable. Sometimes big just means you're a bigger target. The plan was ambitious, even by human standards. A strike team would use captured Void Hunter technology to get close to the command ship. They would plant nuclear charges in key locations, then escape before the ship could respond. Morrison briefed the team personally. This is a one-way mission, unless everything goes perfectly. We're not ordering anyone to go. It's strictly volunteers. Every human in the room raised their hand. So did most of the Zephyrians. Morrison selected his team carefully. Hayes, Santos, Foster, and 6 Zephyrians, including Kasara and Veltar himself. They would use a captured Void Hunter transport to approach. The command ship thought the transport was a horrible thing, like a flying chunk of twisted metal and biological matter. Foster had spent days learning how to pilot it without being consumed by its organic components. Remember, Morrison said as they prepared to launch, you have exactly 20 minutes once you're inside. After that, we start the general attack, whether you're clear or not. The transport launched at midnight, disguised among legitimate Void Hunter traffic. From a distance, it looked like any other enemy vessel returning from a harvesting mission. Hayes monitored their approach on stolen Void Hunter's sensors. 2 minutes to docking, she reported. So far, so good. The command ship loomed ahead of them like a metal mountain. It was covered in weapons, sensors, and feeding tubes. Smaller ships moved around it, like parasites serving their host. There, Kasara pointed to a docking bay. That's our entry point. The transport docked, with barely a vibration. Foster killed the engines and powered down all systems. They were now completely dependent on stealth and speed. Move out, Hayes whispered. They crept through corridors that seemed to be made of living metal. The walls pulsed with dark energy, and the air tasted of decay. This was what the inside of death looked like. Santos planted charges at key structural points while Foster worked on the power systems. The Zephyrians used their technology to mask the human explosives, making them invisible to Void Hunter sensors. 10 minutes left, Hayes reported. They were almost finished when alarms began to sound. Somehow, the Void Hunters had detected them. Run, Hayes shouted. They sprinted through the twisting corridors as Void Hunter warriors converged on their position. The creatures were fast, but humans and Zephyrians were faster when motivated by terror. They reached their transport just as the first enemies rounded the corner. Santos held them off with automatic fire, while the others piled into the ship. Foster started the engines and pulled away from the command ship just as the charges detonated. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. The massive Void Hunter command ship, which had seemed invincible, broke apart in a chain of secondary explosions. Chunks of metal and biomatter scattered across space. But most importantly, the Overmind was damaged. For the first time in its existence, the collective consciousness felt pain, confusion, and something else, fear. The humans had done something no species had ever accomplished. They had hurt the Overmind directly, and if they could do it once, they could do it again. In space around the dying planet, the remaining Void Hunter ships began to withdraw. They were retreating. The hunters were becoming the hunted. On the planet's surface, the Zephyrians celebrated their first major victory. But Morrison knew this was just the beginning. The Void Hunters would be back, and next time they would be ready for human tactics. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, they had one. 3 months after the first human ship arrived at Kepler 442, Commander Veltar stood on what remained of his homeworld's surface. The gray wasteland stretched to the horizon, broken only by the construction sites where his people were trying to rebuild. It would take generations to restore what the Void Hunters had destroyed, but they were alive. That was more than he had dared hope for. The last Void Hunter ships had fled the system 2 weeks ago. The Overmind, wounded and confused by human tactics, had finally admitted defeat. It was the first time in their species' history that they had abandoned a conquest. But victory had come with a price. Veltar's crystal skin was scarred now, marked by the weapons training and combat that had saved his people. He carried a human rifle across his back, a weapon that would have horrified him months ago. All of his surviving people carried weapons now. They had learned that peace was a luxury they could no longer afford. "Commander," said Kessera, approaching through the ruins. The young female had become his best warrior, combining Zephyrian technology with human ruthlessness. "Captain Morrison wants to see you at the landing site." Veltar nodded and followed her across the broken landscape. The human ships were preparing to leave. Their mission here was finished, and they had received new orders. Somewhere else in the galaxy, other people needed help. Morrison was waiting beside the Iron Wolf, checking reports on a portable computer. The human captain looked tired. The battle for Kepler 442 had cost his fleet 3 ships and over 200 crew members. Those losses weighed on him, as they should. "Commander Veltar," Morrison said, looking up from his reports. "We've received final confirmation from our government. Earth is offering a mutual defense pact with your people." Veltar's skin flickered. with complex emotions. What would this mean? It means if someone attacks you again, we'll come running. And if someone attacks us, you help us fight back. Partners in war, basically. Veltar considered this. 3 months ago, the concept of a war partnership would have been unthinkable to his people. They had been builders, creators, artists. Now they were warriors by necessity. There is something else, Morrison continued. We're setting up a training facility here. Human military advisors will help your people learn advanced combat techniques. In return, we'd like access to some of your technology. What kind of technology? Morrison smiled grimly. The kind that helps us fight things like the Void Hunters. Your energy weapons, your shields, your sensors. Combined with human tactics, they could save a lot of lives. It was a fair trade. Human knowledge for Zephyrian technology. Warriors teaching builders how to fight. Builders teaching warriors how to create better weapons. I accept, Veltar said. But I want our brightest young people trained on Earth as well. If we're going to be warriors now, we need to learn from the best. Done, Morrison agreed. We'll start with a dozen exchange students. They'll learn everything we can teach them about warfare, strategy, and military technology. Veltar thought about those young Zephyrians learning to think like humans. They would return home changed, hardened by military training. They would be different from the peaceful people his species had always been, but they would be alive, and sometimes that was all that mattered. Captain, said Chief Petty Officer Nick Davis, approaching from the ship. We've got incoming priority signals from Fleet Command. Morrison frowned. Priority signals during a mission usually meant bad news. What's the message? Davis handed him a communication pad. Morrison read it quickly, and his expression grew dark. What is it? Veltar asked. The Hegemony Coalition has allied with the Void Hunters, Morrison said grimly. They're planning a joint assault on human space. 3 full battle fleets, supported by Void Hunters ships. Veltar felt his crystal skin go cold. The Hegemony Coalition was a group of alien species that had been fighting humans for years. If they had learned to work with the Void Hunters, the threat was enormous. How long do we have? He asked. 6 months, maybe less. They're massing forces. In the Vega system, Veltar made a decision that would have been impossible for him 3 months ago. Take me with you. Morrison looked surprised. What? You saved my people. Now it's time for us to help save yours. I know how the Void Hunters think, how they fight, and my warriors know their weaknesses. Morrison considered this. Having allies in the coming battle would be valuable. Their technology and knowledge of Void Hunter tactics could make the difference between victory and defeat. It won't be easy, Morrison warned. Human space is a long way from here, and this war is going to be bigger than anything we've fought before. My people understand war now, Veltar said simply. We learned from the best teachers. 2 hours later, the Iron Wolf lifted off from Kepler 442. On board were 50 Zephyrian volunteers, including Veltar and Kes. They carried weapons that combined human engineering with Zephyrian technology, creating tools of war that neither species could have built alone. As they jumped to hyperspace, Morrison stood on his bridge and thought about the battle ahead. The Hegemony Coalition had ships, experience, and numbers. The Void Hunters had consumed entire star systems. Together, they represented a threat unlike anything humanity had ever faced. But humans were no longer fighting alone. They had allies now, species that had learned the human way of war. The galaxy was starting to understand that when someone called for help, humans answered, and when humans fought, they fought to win. Sir, said Lieutenant Carter from her communications station, we're receiving signals from other human fleets. It sounds like everyone's heading home. Morrison nodded. The 5th Expeditionary Fleet was just one part of humanity's military force. Across the galaxy, other human ships were receiving the same orders, returning home to defend Earth and its colonies. Any word from the other alien species we've helped? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. The Arcatarian Republic is sending 2 battle groups. The Centauri Confederacy is contributing their entire mobile fleet, and there are reports of other species mobilizing to support us. Morrison smiled for the first time in days. Humanity had spent decades fighting wars across the galaxy, helping species that called for aid. Now, when humans needed help, those same species were answering the call. Sir, said Veltar, who had been listening to the reports, my people have a saying, those who plant seeds of kindness will harvest forests of friendship. I think humans understand this concept well. Maybe, Morrison said. But right now, we need to harvest something else. What's that? Morrison looked out at the stars rushing past his ship. Somewhere out there, the Hegemony Coalition and the Void Hunters were preparing for war. They thought they could destroy humanity through superior numbers and technology. They were about to learn they were wrong. Victory, Morrison said simply. We need to harvest victory. The Iron Wolf continued through hyperspace, carrying its mixed crew of humans and aliens toward the greatest battle in galactic history. Behind them, the homeworld continued its slow recovery. Ahead of them lay Earth, humanity's cradle world, and the war that would determine the fate of the galaxy, in the ship's training bay. New recruits practiced with weapons that had never existed before the humans and Zephyrians learned to fight. Together, Chief Petty Officer Davis, now in charge of training, watched them work and smiled. Why do humans always end up fighting the galaxy's worst threats? One young recruit asked. Davis thought about the question seriously. It was something a lot of people wondered about. Humans seemed to attract trouble wherever they went. Because somebody has to, Davis said finally, and we're too stubborn to quit. The recruit nodded and went back to his training. In the background, human and Zephyrian voices mixed together as they prepared for war. They were different species, from different worlds, with different cultures. But they shared something important now, the knowledge that some fights were worth having, and some things were worth protecting. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened those things, and the lesson would be written in fire and steel, taught by the deadliest teachers in the universe, humans who had decided to help.